joining us today for What's Happening. I'm very excited to introduce our guests. Met them before. Two wonderful leaders in our community. We have Molly Purdue. She's the co-founder and executive director of the Alzheimer's Family Support Center of Cape Cod. Thanks for being here, Molly.
Thanks, Kate.
And we have Melanie Braverman. She is co-founder along with Molly and also cultural director. Great to see you.
Okay, you too.
So today we're going to talk about the fall walk for the organization. And in the past, we've been able to have it another way, outdoors in a beautiful town on Cape Cod in P-Town. But as we all know, the pandemic has made us do some pivots, and you guys have a good idea and a great way to make some money for your organization. So beforehand, can we just do a little bit of a conversation around the mission of the organization before we talk about the virtual walk?
Absolutely. So what's interesting about this Provincetown walk that's now going to be virtual this year is that this is how we got started. So we decided that we wanted to create the Alzheimer's Family Support Center. And we thought, all right, you have to fundraise to get this idea off the ground. And we started with an art show in Provincetown and this walk. And we did it just by word of mouth the first year. And we were able, because of the walk, to start putting support groups in every town. So from Provincetown to Falmouth, we went town by town, so we would actually have a place that people could go and they could get information about how to care for someone that has Alzheimer's, or if someone was living with Alzheimer's or a dementia-related disease, they could be a part of an activity group where they could start to think about how they were going to continue to live well and deal with some of the cognitive changes they were experiencing. So what's so exciting about talking about the walk is that this is how we actually got all of our services going. And it was so exciting to think, okay, we have this idea, will it become operational? And we got it off the ground. And so what we have done since that time is we were doing something like 60 different groups from Provincetown to Falmouth before the COVID pandemic. And those 60 groups, yeah, we were doing care consultations across the Cape in COAs, at different assisted livings. We were doing many face-to-face. Melanie, as the cultural director, had many programs going at the Katuitt Center for the Arts, for the Cape Cod Museum of Art, Falmouth. And so what happened to us when COVID hit is that we had to do a really quick pivot, and we had to figure out, how do we keep serving the needs of a population whose needs just increased? Because even though Governor Baker said, we have to shut so many things down, and he did that for a good reason, we realized, since the center was on our property, that we needed to keep working because day programs were not running. Volunteer organizations could not safely send out volunteers. So we found that it made a lot of sense for us to open our phone lines 7 days rather than 5 days, because, hey, if you couldn't find toilet paper anywhere on Saturday, well, you're supposed to wait till Monday, or paper towels. And we had our niece was staying with us, so we had help on the phones, and she would go out and do her deliveries when people needed it, if they needed masks or gloves or toilet paper. So, when you say, what do we do? I mean, we try to fill in the gaps, and whatever those gaps are, from serious gaps like contingency planning, when somebody could start to have a cough or be sick and not have anybody that could be backup for their person living with dementia, and they needed to go get a test or they needed to go to the hospital. So we do the heavy lifting like that, all the way to the paper towel deliveries. So, and they're all important. I can't say that these things are not important. And just to give you a little quick story about that point, when there was a news show about these Colombian families that were dealing with early onset Alzheimer's, familial Alzheimer's. And, all these researchers were going into Colombia and they were trying to, study these families, and they would get them together. And there was one brief moment where one person in the back raised their hand and said, "I just need to know where you get the depends," and I think, so the breadth of need for Alzheimer's families can be quite something.
And I think that it's hard to overstate the early devastation to these families during the pandemic, that while people may or may not have known people who were getting sick or who had died, in the Alzheimer's dementia community inside facilities was a very, very different story. And I think it's important to give a shout out to those families and also to those essential workers who were standing in for family at times when you couldn't get in to see your person, where everything was on lockdown and the infection rates were really skyrocketing. So the early days of this pandemic were especially devastating to this community. And then the ongoing challenge, as Molly said, of having all the other social supports closed down. People were very dependent on day programs, very dependent on their councils on aging. And those agencies all did what they had to do to keep people safe. It wasn't, nobody was, it was not a negative on these organizations. They did what they had to do, but the effects were really, really challenging for the families that we serve. So, one of the things that we talk a lot about is that we are a need responsive organization, which is that we're not assuming what the need is. We are taking the information from the community as it's presented and saying, okay, this community needs this right now. We'll either find somebody in the community who's doing it already because we don't want to reinvent any wheels. But if the need isn't being answered, we have to find a way to do it because they're concrete and they tend to be immediate. So when Molly talks about the pivot during the pandemic, we had to go back to the original impulse of the mission, which was to respond to the need as it's presented, understanding that those needs had changed basically overnight, and we had to figure out a way to do it. And so that's what we did to the best of our ability, and we're still doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. You've got that great newsletter that you're sending out electronically every day. Wonderful information in there, some things that are heartwarming, uplifting. So kudos to you. That's got to be a ton of work, but I really appreciate seeing it every day.
That's
Yeah.
great. And we've also been able to get all of our support groups online. So if people are in need of ongoing support, they should call us or email us, and we can get them a support group. We've put our educational programs online. So we have a schedule of Savvy, which is an evidence-based educational program that people can attend online. Melanie and Rachel Devaney have put some of the Arts and Ideas programming online, so people are able to have some fun get-togethers. Elvis was in the house, the Beatles were in the house once, and I don't know what's next. I know that they're coming up with some other program that's going to be happening. So I think there's a lot of fun stuff that people can connect to that will be really helpful to them.
And I do want to just jump on what Molly was saying about support groups, because I want people to know that we don't just have support groups for caregivers. We also have support groups for people living with dementia diseases. And we have a fairly robust couple of support groups for people who are grieving the loss of somebody to Alzheimer's and dementia. So we are trying to cover the same bases we were covering prior to the pandemic. The system is slightly different because obviously we're online. We used to do them town by town. They're getting mixed up a little bit. So it looks slightly different, but it's essentially the same kind of supports. And the other thing that I really want people to know is that we're still doing the kinds of consultations, care planning, dementia-specific counseling, family meetings that our clinical team has been doing from the get-go. And we still have our insurance support program going as well. So rest assured that if you go to our website and you look at our programming, we have a virtual program that speaks to the needs that we were addressing before. It just looks a little bit different than it did before.
Great. And our viewers can also go to the website to sign up for the newsletter as well, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. If they send us an email to info@capecodalz.org, and just let us know what they're looking for, whether it's a support group or getting on our mailing list or whatever, that email address will get you where you need to go.
Great. And what's so great about your organization from my seat, as I do have a family member that does suffer from dementia, is what you were saying earlier, Molly, and you did too, Melanie, is being responsive to the needs today.
Mm.
Because I think families oftentimes feel quite isolated in how they actually are going to go forward. How do they make plans and all? So that's a wonderful part of the mission of your organization.
Yeah, and as former caregivers, I know, and Melanie knows how difficult it is sometimes to open that door and let someone in because you feel like you should be able to handle it yourself, or you say things like, well, we're just not ready yet, or when he or she gets a little worse or a little further in the disease. And what all the research shows is that you can never connect to help too early, that the earlier you reach out, the easier time you'll have of caregiving. And I think what I've learned, and I've learned this personally as well as from all the work that we do, is that if you can help people over the difficulty, there is still so much time to enjoy what you're sharing with the person that's living, with the disease. And so the point of connecting is so you can start experiencing those moments earlier, so you can differentiate what's the disease and what's the personality. And in little things. I was talking to someone the other day, and they were just starting to understand that there's so many different areas of cognition that can be in decline, not just the element of time. And so to understand that you don't have to get so angry when someone makes a misjudgment, that you can say, okay, they get a get out of jail free card, because this is just the disease. Just like if someone were losing their eyesight and they couldn't read the stop sign, you wouldn't yell, what do you mean? You saw that stop sign a year ago. Why can't you read it now? And we understand visual impairment, but cognitive impairment, we all have to get a little more educated to be able to see it. So.
And I think that what Molly said speaks so directly to the way in which we provide service, because these things all dovetail into each other, right? Education is a really essential part of becoming a better caregiver. And so we endeavor to educate people at every turn. At the same time, you can be as educated as you want to be, but if you're not getting support from other people, that's not going to help you out so much either. So you start to see how all of these things combined are what create the most effective kinds of support. And that's what the model is coming back to, something that we all used to do more of in the culture, which is stand in for our neighbors, help out our community, help out our families. And we have so many people on the Cape who are retired here living without the benefit of their adult children. They don't have access to extended families the way we maybe used to at one point in time. So, we're not creating something new. Essentially, we're bringing ourselves back to this sense of community, stepping forward to help each other. And that's one of the reasons, just to pivot to talk about our walk for a minute, why our Provincetown event especially has been so incredible for people, because we bring everybody together to Provincetown. We feed everybody. We have live music. We're dancing. And we do it all for free because it's like a big block party. And last year's walk had 500 people there, and everybody ate and everybody danced and everybody had a good time. So what we're trying to do is keep that sense of community engagement alive in a different way, just like we've had to keep our service line alive in a different way to adapt to what's happening with the crisis. But we know we can make this happen in a way that's fun and continues to be joyful and productive for people. So that's kind of the idea behind this virtual walk that we're rolling out right now.
That's wonderful. So how can folks participate in the virtual walk?
Well,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. No.
We're calling it the 2020 virtual walk and give for Alzheimer's. So the idea is really simple. We want people to get outside while the weather's beautiful. Fall is spectacular here on the Cape. Take a walk, donate $5, and ask 5 people to do the same thing. And we think that by keeping the goal modest, we make it accessible. Some people decided that they were going to walk every day and give us $5 every day for a week. Some people decided that they were going to call their family and say, go out and take a walk and we'll send $5 in your name. You know, there's lots of ways to be able to do this to engage more people. And the other thing we really want to encourage people to do is when you're outside walking, take a selfie or make a little video and send it to us. We'll run those out in our email blast. We have 5,000 people we send emails to every day. We want people to see that we're still connected, that we're still here, that we still have purpose, and that we're taking care of ourselves and each other at the same time by getting outside and taking a walk.
Yeah, so the walking is so beneficial for so many different reasons. We just sent out an email this week that talked about a neuroscientist that was touting the benefits of exercising and moving your body. And she was doing a TED talk and she actually had everybody stand up and kind of move around, and you can feel better by moving. And the pandemic has, you know, it's made some of us not feel so happy, you know, or feel isolated, and the isolation can create negative feelings. So you know, we always encourage mask wearing or social distancing when you're out there, but the idea of inviting 5 friends and taking a walk while you're being safe and you're outdoors, it can change your whole demeanor when you go back inside. And it's something that is healthy. We can all do it. You know, the fall weather, I mean, I actually love the fall the best on Cape Cod. It's my favorite time of year. And I think it's something that is good for you. So we really want to encourage people to do that. Now, I'd rather be at Provincetown Town Hall dancing with a band playing and Cosmos Catering bringing, you know, having a whole array of food and seeing everyone face to face. But we don't have that right now. And I really feel that we have to make the best of what we have. And you know, that's something that we try to teach all of our caregivers. And it's something we also reinforce to people that are living with disease. Nobody ever signs up for these things knowing how difficult they're going to be. Nobody ever signs up, period, right? And if this is something that you're faced with, well, every time any of us are faced with difficulty, we have to find a way through. And usually the way through is not by ourselves, it's with our community. And the community can help. And this is another way of inviting your friends and trying to build in the middle of a pandemic a little bit more community that's safe because you're outdoors.
Right.
Yeah.
So folks can donate again by going to the website. Is that the best way?
Absolutely. We have another really simple way to participate, which is to dial 44321 on your cell phone and text ALZGIVE, and that will get you directly to the walk site where you can, on your handy smartphone, make a donation that way. There's also a way to create on the walk site a team effort. So if you have a group of people that wants to get out there and raise money together and do their walking as a group effort, you can make a team online, and that'll show you how much everybody's raising. And that's a really fun way to inspire people and get people excited. You can link it to your Facebook page. You can link it to your Instagram account. There's lots of ways to get the word out. And think about, Kate, how incredibly powerful the ice bucket challenge was for ALS. And remember when people were dumping buckets of ice on their head and it just went viral. And what that did was not just raise funds, but it raised awareness around the struggle. And it made people living with the disease feel seen and connected to a much larger community. And I will tell you, there is so much isolation and loneliness and fear attached to these kinds of dementia diseases. So letting people know that you see them, that you hear them, that you are with them in their struggle and in their lives and their daily process is such a powerful, powerful thing. And I think the other thing that I want to say is that one of the things that people are feeling really deeply during this pandemic is a sense of hopelessness or helplessness. I would say there's nothing we can do. But we know, and we know that the same thing can be said for people looking at Alzheimer's and dementia as incurable chronic diseases. And 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 we know that there's so much that we can do to lift people up. And doing this $5 donation, taking these short walks, this is a way to fill yourself with this feeling that you're actually doing something to help this thing that can often feel so helpless. So
Yeah.
we'd love for this to blow up and go viral and get as many people involved as we possibly can, and know that the message that you're sending to this community that suffers so much from invisibility is being seen and acknowledged. It's a very, very powerful thing.
Yes, yes. Thank you for sharing that message, Melanie. So, is there anything else that you'd like to add today before we wrap up?
No, I was just thinking when Melanie was talking, I was thinking of a story when we were caring for our children and we had my mother, and everybody got the stomach flu. So I had two babies that would throw up, and then I had my mother. And a neighbor came over, a good friend of ours came over in the middle of this where I didn't know who to help first. And I can't tell you how big it is to have community or to have someone reach out in that moment where you don't know how you're going to get through it. And usually those things happen only in moments. And you may be experiencing some of that yourself, as a caregiving family. And I think until we can build this kind of community where we have what we need while we go through these difficult things, people are going to struggle, and they don't have to if we have the supports in place. So, the walk is a piece of us trying to kind of build this community here on Cape Cod, and we are hopeful that these kinds of small neighborhood Alzheimer's organizations that can be receptive and available to people could be in other places at some point in time, because everybody does need help as they go through this. So I feel really grateful to you to help us for us getting the word out, because without, so many of these outlets, no one would know who we are. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Oh, and thank you for all the work that you do for so many people and families on Cape Cod. It's just wonderful.
Thank you, Kate.
We'll talk to you guys soon.
All right. You
Great.
take good care. Be safe.
You too. Bye
Bye.
bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.